exciting weekend for Grace. Exciting weekend for Grace Church. We're launching our Alamance campus. We just couldn't be more excited. It really is a big deal. And today in Alamance, they're throwing a big party. And so, hey, could everyone here in Chapel Hill give them a big hand? Come on. We love you all. We're so excited. And I tell you what, watching that, those clips, it moved my heart. I realized this is a culmination of vision and prayer for years and just seeing what God's doing. And we just love everyone out there in Alamance. We're praying for you and know that God is really going to do something special. And I was just thinking about everyone at Alamance today that they're going to be able to say, we were in the room, right? Like we were the OGs. We were the first ones there, okay? And we're excited for you, praying for you. It really is a fun season when there's a new beginning. In fact, that's what we're going to talk about today is new beginnings. How many of y'all have ever needed a new beginning before? Yeah, I've needed a new beginning before. Sometimes we just need a fresh start, particularly if you had a bad day. Have you ever had a bad day before? I've had a bunch of bad days. Can I tell you about one of my bad days? I had a really bad day one day. So my wife and I, we live out in the country in Hillsboro. We got 18 acres. My wife's got like 2 gardens and 30, 40 chickens, and she just loves all that. And I've got some English Springer Spaniel dogs that I train for hunting, and got a couple deer stands up. And we're just kind of loving the country life out there. And also my wife, one time I was up in Indiana, and I knew if I sent her this video, it was going to be over, okay? And I sent her a video of these little calves that were like so cute, these little, and sure enough, that was true. It was over, right? So we've actually, my wife calls it our sunshine to burger program, okay? Where we've raised like 7 sets of Black Angus steers, and we raise them up. And so we've done it, like I said, we keep them for about a year. We've done it for a good while. And I will just say this, you learn a few things over there. And I'll tell you one of the things we learned. I think it was the second time that we did this. I thought I kind of knew what I was doing, right? So we decided we were going to load up the steers the night before, like in the morning. The way I describe it is this: we're going to help the steers fulfill their destiny and purpose in life. Being processed. Okay, that's the burger part. Okay, turn it into the burger part. And so anyway, what we did is this: we brought the horse trailer down, got them loaded up in the evening because it's about a 2-hour drive. I was going to leave at like 4 or 5 in the morning, get there so I could get back and get a day's work in. And I thought it all went great, fed them. They had their nice little dinner in the trailer, and it was, right at dusk, getting dark. So we went inside and had dinner, and it started to rain. And so we're at dinner, and after dinner gets over, my wife, Nana, she says, well, hey, sweetheart, I'm going to go check on the steers. And I'm like, sweetheart, it's not really a big deal. Like, tomorrow it's, lights out. Like I don't know, what are you going to check? I don't know. And so she goes, I said, okay. So she goes out in the rain, checks on the steers. And it was maybe 20 seconds later. Maybe. Door bursts open. She comes in the house. She goes, they're gone. I go, what do you mean they're gone? She goes, they're gone. I'm like, oh my God. We had 2 of our girls at home at the time. I was like, help, girls, And so we had 4 of us scrambling, throwing on a jacket and boots. And my wife, she's really smart. So she goes down to the barn and starts rattling the barn door and banging their food, to like see if they would hear that and come, We check out in the yard, the fields, and there's like nothing, nothing. And so anyway, we split up. And so one daughter takes off in the golf cart, and Nana and Gabriella go looking, and I hop on the ATV, and I go around the perimeter, and I got this big flashlight, and I'm like flashing it in the woods. I'm like, Lord, just let me see 2 eyes, In 5 minutes, turns into 10 minutes, turns into 15 minutes as I looked at her, and I'm like, this is not good. And talk with Nana, and she's like, oh, the poor steers, And I'll confess, when I'm looking, that's not where my head was. My head was weight, hanging weight, pounds times dollars. I'm like, there's a lot of money running around out there in the woods somewhere. That's where my head was. I'll be honest. I'm a little cold-hearted, And they were gone. Let me tell you what, that was a bad day. That was a bad day. Sometimes a bad day just happens to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just happens to you. You get a flat tire, all right? Furnace goes out or something. By the way, I will tell you the end of the story, okay? I'm gonna leave you hanging a little bit, though. Okay. Maybe you missed a flight. Have you ever missed a flight before? Like, oh my gosh. One time we were flying back to Raleigh, Durham. We had to go through Atlanta, dreaded Atlanta. And so our flight was late coming in, and so we just literally hustle. And I thought, oh my gosh, we're going to barely make it, and come around the corner, and there the plane is there, and the gate lady's there, and we made it with 8 minutes to, go there. And I go, we made it. And she goes, you must arrive 10 minutes before the flight time when we shut the door. I'm like, because it's 10:30 at night now. This is the last flight, and I'm like, oh, ma'am, there's the plane. Ticket, please let it. I'm sorry, but we closed the gate 10 minutes before, and you must. I'm like, we're gonna have to stay the night. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, and the depth of my spirituality was challenged at that moment. I will confess, as your pastor, that was like a moment. We had to stay overnight. It was a bad day. I don't know if y'all remember, we had an ice storm come through here, and living out in the country. It was December, it was 7 years ago, something like that. We had a big ice storm. We had over 200 trees went down on our property. And I looked out there and I go, that's a bad day. That's that's a lot of chainsawing, a lot of loading, a lot of Anyway, sometimes a bad day happens to you. Now let's be honest about this too. Have y'all ever created a bad day? Sometimes it doesn't just happen to you. You kind of make the bad day. Like getting a speeding ticket. One time we were driving down to a pastor's meeting. That's so spiritual. You should never get a speeding ticket when you're going to a pastor's meeting. But we're driving down to Fayetteville, and I'm driving along. It's just wide open. There's cars nowhere. It's wide, straight away. And I go, look at that. There's someone up there pulled into the woods hunting. I figure there's a hunter, And all of a sudden I go, that wasn't a hunter. I was like, okay. And the old pastor's meeting thing didn't work out. I mean, he didn't buy for that one. But maybe you had a discussion with your spouse. You have a discussion, that kind of heads south, and you say something unkind or hurtful, or you lose your temper with your kids, or you make the bad day, right? You make a purchase you regret. You didn't feel good about it, but you went ahead with it, or you drank too much. You quit your job, and you feel terrible. You go, that was my fault. It makes the bad day worse, isn't it true? When you realize it didn't just happen to you, but you go yeah, I kind of got to own that one. Let me encourage you. It's not just us. It's not just you and me. It's the heroes of the Bible that we look up to, kind of the rock stars of the Bible. They had bad days. They had bad days happen to them, and they made some bad days themselves. Esther had a bad day happen to her. Again, this wasn't her own doing, but it fell into her lap when she found out that her husband's, the king's, right-hand man, Haman, had a plot to kill all the Jews. And she was the one person who could intervene if she'd risk her life and step in. That was a tough day. That was a bad day for her. Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, falsely accused of rape, thrown in prison, forgotten. Bad day after day after day. Job is probably the ultimate of having a bad day. Wait. He lost his kids. He lost his health. He lost his wealth. I mean, all in one shot. Moses had a bad day. He got angry at the injustice of what was happening in Egypt with God's people, and he killed a man. Esau had a bad day. Esau came in from hunting, starving, hungry. He had a birthright from his father being the oldest. He sold his birthright for a bowl of stew. That wasn't a good day. That was a bad day. That wasn't a good day. Jonah ran from God. Jacob served Laban for 7 years to marry the girl of his dreams, Rachel. And then Laban gave him the other sister, Leah. That's a bad day. This wasn't the girl I was shooting for. And had to serve another 7 years to marry the girl of his dreams. We've all had bad days. Let me just say this. Daniel got thrown in the lion's den. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego got thrown in the fiery furnace. Bad days happen. Bad days happen to all of us. And in those low spots, in those bad days, and sometimes those bad days, it kind of turns into a season, doesn't it? It turns into a season that's really tough. And let me just say this, God has purpose and new beginnings for us on our bad days, in our bad seasons. And what I want to do is this, I want to look at another bad day. It's a story from the New Testament of Peter. And I want us to catch some principles because I think we could maybe all get something on how God could work in our lives and give us a new beginning when we've had a bad day or even a bad season. Now, Peter, who is Peter? Well, Peter was one of Jesus' 12 disciples. He was originally a fisherman. 4 of the 12 disciples were fishermen. Jesus called them to follow him. And I tell you one thing about Peter is I think he's awesome because we can all relate to him. Like, he's kind of a loudmouth. He's kind of braggadocious. He sticks his foot in his mouth. He's kind of competitive. And he's very passionate, but he, messes up. And Peter's bad day, a really bad day, happened at the end of Jesus' life. He'd been following Jesus for 3 years, hearing his teachings. He was all in. Like, he was was one of the 12 disciples. He really knew some sense his stuff, right? He was a leader. People were following him. And so at the Last Supper, they're having the Passover Seder meal. Jesus tells his disciples that he was going to die, that he would be betrayed and died. And let me pick this up here. Go ahead. Matthew 26:31 says, Jesus told them, this very night you will all fall away on account of me. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. He says, this very night, you're all going to fall away. And Peter, remember Peter, he's the passionate one. Peter goes, hey, listen, even if all fall away on account of you, I never will. I mean, he's like, all these other loser disciples, they might fall away, but not me. I never will. And Jesus said to him, truly I tell you, Peter, this very night, before the rooster crows in the morning, you will disown me 3 times. But Peter declared, listen, he's not backing down. Even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. And all the other disciples said the same thing. Well, after they have the Passover meal and the first communion, really, they go to the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus asked Peter, John, would you pray with me for an hour? And they fall asleep. Peter's sound asleep while Jesus is praying. Father, take this cup from me, but not my will, but your will be done. And Jesus wakes up Peter and John and James and says, come on, guys, wake up. Because at that moment, Judas had betrayed Jesus, and they show up with these guards to arrest Jesus. And Judas betrays Jesus with a kiss. But check this out. Peter, we kind of make fun of him and stuff, and we can relate to him. But he's also really committed. I mean, in that moment, he was very serious. Like, I'm going to die with you. And so he grabs his sword, and he swipes at one of these soldiers. He's going to go down swinging. But he is a fisherman, not a soldier, okay? And hits this soldier's ear, cuts off his ear, and Jesus miraculously heals his ear. It's like, stick to fishing, big guy. I'm just kidding. Jesus said, hey, if you live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. This is not the way this is going down. Jesus is taken away, put on trial, falsely accused. Ultimately, Jesus confesses to the one thing that he did that was a problem, which he said, I am the Christ. They asked him, are you the Christ, the Son of God? And he said, Yahweh, I am. And they're like, whoa, you heard it, And that night, during that trial, around a fire, Peter's hanging nearby, and someone says to him, hey, don't you know Christ, Jesus? He said, oh, no. And the second time, and a third time, and the rooster crows, and it said this, that Jesus looked at Peter in the eye. I don't know exactly how it all went down, but they locked eyes for just a minute. Can you imagine the loving, gracious eyes of your Savior? And it just broke Peter. It broke him. the Bible says he went out and wept bitterly. How could I be so spineless? How could I be so afraid of what people think? How could I be so bold? Literally earlier in the day, and now this girl, teenage girl, asked me if I know Christ, and I can't even stand up and say that I associate with him. It's so stunningly embarrassing. It's so shameful. He had messed up. Any apostle, disciple of Jesus would never do such a disgraceful thing. And I wonder if he had things like running through his head, like Jesus teaching, if you aren't willing to take up your cross and follow me, you're not worthy of me. And I just imagine him thinking that in his head. I don't know that, but I bet it went through his head. And he goes, I'm not worthy. I'm disqualified. I messed up. It was my fault. I was wrong. If you fast forward a little bit, Jesus is crucified, buried in the tomb. He rises from the dead, and some women come with burial spices, and they run back, and Peter and James and John, they run to the tomb, and they see that the tomb is empty. The grave is empty. Peter knows now that Christ rose from the dead. And in that place, let me just say this, when you have that shame and that feeling of being disqualified, even in that place, Peter decides, I'm out. I'm out. He leaves Jerusalem and goes back to Galilee, which is 100 miles walk. Like, it's a couple days. Like, this didn't all happen like this. Like, he walked 100 miles to think, I'm out. And he talks with the other disciples, and this is what he says to them. He says, I'm going fishing. And you hear that? He didn't say, do y'all want to go fishing? We're going fishing. He says, I am going fishing. I'm out. I'm isolating. See ya. And the guys go with him. Peter was just a natural leader. And so they go fishing all night. They catch nothing. Professional fishermen didn't catch one fish all night. And as the sun is rising, as they're going to wrap up and know that all the good fishing's over and they're not going to catch anything, they're starting to wrap it all up. And there's this guy on the shore, yells to them and says, hey, put your nets out on the other side. It's like, hey, dude, that doesn't do any good. We were fishing all night. We've been fishing all over, like switch sides of the boat. But they had kind of had this experience one other time. So they threw the net out on the other side, and bam! The net is full. They just like miraculous catch a fish, and someone says, it's the Lord, it's Jesus. And again, Peter's back, baby. He's back. He just like gets so excited, puts on his jacket. He literally jumps in the water. I just imagine trying to swim with all those clothes. They come up to the beach. Jesus had made them breakfast, and I love making breakfast, so I don't know, I'd love to have one of his breakfasts. I bet it was pretty good, Jesus serves them breakfast. And let's pick up the story. Look at this. When they finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Referring to the fish. Referring to his career, what he was naturally good at, what he'd gone back to when everything had fallen apart. And he says, do you love me? Notice, check this out. He doesn't say, are you going to do a better job next time? He doesn't say, do you really feel bad? Did you repent for your sin? Are you going to obey me from now on? Are you never going to do that again, get mad at your kids or mess up like that again? He doesn't say it. He says, do you love me? And he says, yes, Lord. You know that I love you. And then Jesus says this. I never would have saw that coming. Feed my lambs. I never would have saw that coming. I would have said, okay, hey, if you're going to deny me, why don't you take a break from ministry? We're going to hook you up with some good counselor and some discipleship. We got a class for you to take. We're going to give you a 6-month break from ministry so you can work on yourself and so you can heal and get better. Feed my lambs. Get into community. Don't you dare go isolate. Lean into people and actually use your gift and talent to give it to someone else. And as you help someone else, it's going to help you. He's saying, you're qualified. Get in the game. Get connected. Listen, he does it again. He says, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Second time. Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said, then take care of my sheep. Powerful. Let me just say this. Some of y'all need to hear that. You're not disqualified. You're in. You don't have to go back and fix it all. And actually, in helping someone else, it often really helps us. Third time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him a third time, do you love me? He said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. And Jesus said, feed my sheep. I've called you not to fish for fish, but to be a fisher of men, to care for people. 3 times Jesus affirmed Peter. 3 times to heal the wound of his 3 denials, to put it over and over. Those 3 denials Peter had replayed in his head. Can you imagine how many times he had replayed those 3 denials in his head over and over and over? And what Jesus was saying is this, hey, I want you to have a new narrative in your head. You love me. You're qualified. Go and help someone else. It's going to help you. Peter, let me say it again. You love me. You're qualified. You got a calling. You got a destiny. You got gifts. You got talents. Get in the game. Help someone else. It will help you. Hey, Peter, let me just say it one more time. You love me. You're qualified. Get in the game. In helping someone else, it's really going to help you. And then Jesus goes on, check this out. He says, very truly I tell you, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted, and when you were old, you stretched out and when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go. Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. And church history actually says that Peter was crucified, and he didn't want to be crucified like Christ, so he was crucified upside down. And Christ was indicating the kind of death that actually, not in his own strength, but at the right time in God's strength, he goes, you're going to have the courage to not deny me and to lay down your life for me. I'm going to be with you. And then look at this last thing that he says. And then he said to him, I love the simplicity of this. Follow me. Follow me. Last words that we have recorded of Jesus talking to Peter. Do you know what the first 2 words that were recorded of Jesus talking to Peter were? Follow me. Follow me. Like, hey, just follow me. Stay committed. Stay in the game. Stay in the game, Peter. You're qualified. Now, it's a powerful story about new beginnings. How can this help us practically? What do we see from this story? Here's the first thing we see is this.